So you're kicking off a new project and you're getting ready to interview your subject matter experts, but you're not even sure what to ask? Well, in this video, I'm gonna break down what my questions are in the initial subject matter expert interview. Hey everyone, I'm Vanessa, and I help aspiring instructional designers and e-learning developers get off of the sidelines and get into the L&D game. Now, I don't know what your favorite part about instructional design is, but mine is always the initial kickoff. I love the needs analysis phase. I love the beginning of developing timelines. I love meeting with subject matter experts and project sponsors and beginning that relationship. I love relationship building. And the initial subject matter expert interview can be one of my most favorite meetings I will have the entire time that I'm working with a client. So I totally understand that subject matter expert interviews can seem daunting and intimidating because you don't know these people and you're trying to figure out how to work with them and how to extrapolate the information that you need. And as we all know, no two subject matter experts are created equal. Subject matter experts can do anything from give you too much information to completely ghost you and you'll never find them again. And that can be very frustrating. So that's why I've developed a list of questions I love to ask in the beginning of my interview so I can learn more about the learner, more about the project, but also more about the SME. So before I kick off, first things always first with me, I start with introductions and I just start by breaking the ice with my subject matter expert. And I know this may seem silly as you may think that you want to get down and get right to work, but I find that people like working with people, and I am more likely to get information from my subject matter expert at least later on when I need to email them because I need another meeting or I want them to review something. I'm more apt to get an answer from them or to get their feedback if I treat them like I'm building a relationship and we've formed that some sort of working relationship with each other and we've created some sort of structure for how we're going to meet and when we're going to meet and the types of questions I'm going to be asking and the types of things I need from them. So first things first, make sure you're doing some sort of time where you're getting to know this SME, you're learning more about their role at the company, what they like, and it's going to take a few minutes to do that. And don't be scared of doing that and don't feel like you are going to take away from the time that you have to gather the information that you need to create your training. It's really important to lay the groundwork and lay the foundation with that SME so you establish more of an emotional relationship with them so they'll keep answering your questions and they hopefully won't ghost you as quickly. Once you've gotten all of that out of the way, here's your first question. Who's the target audience? Who are we creating training for? And I use this information to develop a learner persona. I'll develop something like that in Canva using tools like a Miro board or Google Jamboard, where we really build out who the learner is and what are they motivated by, and how much time do they have for training. So I love to ask this question. Who is the target audience? What do they like? What is their day like? How much time do they have to dedicate to training? How good are they at technology? Are these people that are more technology adverse? Do they have what kind of, even just something as simple like what computer are they using? Are they using Macs? Are they using, Windows desktop? I got a request the other day in the group still on IE. We're working on it. But I knew that we had people that were lagging a little bit in technology, and this is all such important information that I need to know as I'm gonna go in and build their training. So make sure you're getting that type of information out of the way as soon as you're meeting with your subject matter expert. The next question I love to ask is, when does the course need to be made available to the learner? And sometimes it's your subject matter expert that's going to give you this information, and sometimes it's going to be your project sponsor. So it's good to have a kickoff meeting with both of them. And some of these questions you may need to ask at the kickoff meeting as opposed to your SME meeting, but that is really important information to have because I like to work backwards from that date. And you might already have that, but it's just good to reiterate or re-ask that question to see if something's changed in the business, if you maybe have a couple of extra weeks or maybe you have a week less. like I mentioned in previous videos, I work with a lot of software training, and so sometimes I'll end up being hired to do a job that is for a certain date, and then they're like, oh, we actually have to push that back 2 weeks because the system's not ready. We found some bugs during UAT testing, and so now we actually have to train on this day, and we actually need you to wait because you can't get into the environment just yet. So important to ask when we need the training. The other question I love to ask is, what's the goal or the outcome for the training? So in their perfect world, what is this for? And that's gonna help you identify the type of training that you need to create, and whether or not it's a one and done type of event, or if it's something that you may need to create that has supplemental activities or supplemental material. So I like to ask, my next question is, what is the goal or the outcome for the training? And that's going to inform me the type of materials I think that might be better suited for the training, because as we all know that instructor-led training, virtual training, e-learning, that's all good, and those are great parts of the training roadmap for certain business problems that you're trying to solve, but that can't be the end-all be-all. Training is not a one-event type deal, or learning is not a one event type deal. So maybe there's other supplemental materials that you're going to have to create that accompany this training. So knowing what the learning goals or the learning outcome they would like is going to help inform some of that information. The next thing I love to ask SMEs is if there's any existing material for this topic, and I love to see it. I ask them to bring it. It's actually even something that I ask them before they even come to the meeting. And the reason for that is that sometimes I'm contracted to revamp training, or like I've mentioned in previous videos, I was part of phase 3 of a training project with a client of mine. So I want to see the material they had beforehand to understand why they were not happy with that material, and what we could do better with this material. And that's just one thing. Usually if there's existing material on a topic, it means that it's not working. So I need to see why it's not working, and if it's in fact a training issue, or if it's in fact it's not the appropriate type of deliverable for that problem. So it's something that I love to look at. I love to analyze and learn more from not only the SMEs, but if I can get access to an end user, more about the end user as well. So for example, one of the things that was asked was from my one client was about using quick reference cards, something physical that store associates could have, and they could just flip through that when they're having an issue in front of a customer, with their system. And I said, okay, that's cool. What happens when you need to make an update to that, right? So you added a new feature, or you changed how a feature works, or you deactivated a feature. Oh, well, we have to send the new card to the store and have them add it to the ring, but we don't really know if they take the ring, what they do with that other card, if they actually replace it, if they ever even include it. And so a lot of times, a lot of their questions were because the learners, or the store associates in this case, were not doing that one step. So I sat and I thought about it, and we talked a lot about what would be the best option. And so for us in that case was a PDF user manual with screenshots that they could search through to find exactly what they needed. The index or the table of contents was all clickable. They could, if there was an update, push out a new version right to their store desktop, so they knew they always had the latest version. They never had to worry about whether or not they were working on an older version or the newer version. And it was something that was quick and easy, and they were already going to be on the computer. So it's just opening up one other item on their desktop in order to search for that answer. So that's one way that we solved the problem that I saw of whether or not we should be using quick reference cards or an interactive user guide. So another question I love to ask SMEs is what is it that causes confusion for the learners? So sometimes they will give me a new process that they need to be trained on, or there's a new process being rolled out, and I like to know what is it that's so confusing. So sometimes it's a matter of talking to the help desk as well, or their IT department, because a lot of times they're fielding a lot of these questions. So if you could get access to IT to use as a SME as well, I definitely suggest that. But yeah, what is it that's so confusing about this process is an excellent question, because you need to know what it is that they're being confused by so you can clarify that before you can retrain them on the new process. So to accompany that question is, what is it that, or what are some things that learners forget but are the most important parts of the step, if I could actually speak today. And that is critical, because those things that are so important, for some reason, learners aren't retaining them. So we need to identify, why is it that they're not retaining that information? Is it too complicated? Is it not said enough? Were they not accurately trained in the beginning on it? Or if there is training on that topic, is that just not even showcased or made important for the student or in that training event? So I'd love to look at that information and learn more about why it is that they're forgetting that. And that's going to be crucial for me as I'm building my training, or as I'm building my modules. So another thing I love to ask is, I would love to ask SMEs to share a few real-world examples of how the learner is going to then take this training or take this process and utilize that material. So if it's training on a software, I'm asking them what are some real-life scenarios that they're going to use every day that we would want them to utilize while they're going through the training. Or if it's a soft skill that I'm training them on, what are some real-world examples that they are going to face that they are going to then have to use that skill? So maybe it's a conflict management skill or a mediation skill. What are some typical types of conflict that you're seeing managers and their employees have? And I like to build that into my course, because then it becomes relatable for the learner, and it becomes relatable for the person that has to think about applying this skill to their everyday work. They can think back and recall, like, yes, I've had that experience and it didn't go the way that it should. And so now let me pay attention and pick up some tips to maybe help me out in the future. So definitely asking about real world examples, either to utilize in the training or to make sure are covered as part of your curriculum, is key. Another question I love to ask accompanying that is, I love to ask the SME to walk through the process or walk through the system with me. I love looking at new training with a fresh pair of eyes, like I know nothing about the topic, nothing about the subject matter. I am a new hire. I am their their ideal end user. And with that lens, I am able to see areas where I find that may be confusing when I'm being trained on it. And those are things that I'll point out to the SME as something like, hey, if you're giving a training or you're explaining this to someone, this part is confusing. And maybe, yes, it's confusing because I'm not ingrained in your business, but as someone that's walking in that maybe has different experiences, came in with a different background, or is brand new, they're not going to know this either. So while it's second nature to you, you cannot guarantee that it's second nature to everyone that's going through the course or that you're putting into this training. So let's take a moment and just clarify that a little bit. Nothing too crazy, nothing too long. We just want to make sure that we're all talking the same language before we apply that skill. And sometimes it's really, it's great to go through the system or through the process with my SMEs or with my project sponsors, because then I'm noticing things that maybe aren't part of my part of training, but I will make note that it was confusing, or I could use a little bit more clarification about this, because then they'll take it and they will look at the training material they currently have and see if it needs to be revamped or see if it needs to be updated in any way. So that's something I would definitely recommend as another question. And you never know, pointing something out that is confusing or could be better improved in a very nice and respectful way could always lead to more business. And then another question I'd love to ask is, if you could develop the course yourself, what would you envision it to look like or behave like? A lot of times when you're contracted for training, especially when you're working in freelance, SMEs, project sponsors, they all have a vision of what the course they want it to kind of look like. Whether it's how it actually looks or things that they've seen before that they really like and that they want to include in their course. And if you don't ask this question, they're going to assume you are a mind reader and you would just know how that this is what they wanted in their course. And then you're going to get your first review back, and it's going to be, your mind will be blown when you see the feedback that you're going to get because you weren't reading their mind. I mean, shame on you, you were not reading their mind. So being able to be open and upfront doesn't mean that you're going to be copying the way that is presented, where that learning is presented, the way it was designed, but it at least gives you an idea of what they like and, you know, types of interaction that they like, types of interactions that they don't like. I would not hesitate to ask them, what is it that they don't like about training, or what it is, or can you show me a training that you went through that you didn't like, so that way you can avoid those pitfalls and avoid those mistakes. Getting all that information ahead of time is just going to make sure that you're meeting your clients where they want to be at, and it keeps you both on the same page of what you expect from your deliverable. So if they're expecting a Ferrari, but they only paid for a Honda, and no shame to Hondas, they're a really good car, but if they are expecting something super high-end and they didn't pay for that high-end product, well, you need to now work on scaling that expectations. And if you don't do that from the beginning, it's going to lead to a very uncomfortable and awkward conversation later when you tell them that's not part of the budget and you're going to need a change order. So save yourself that awkward conversation by seeing what they want and then working to scale their expectations right there from the beginning of what you can deliver within scope and what is considered out of scope. Are you ready to take the next step into freelance instructional design and e-learning development? Well, make sure you click the link in my bio for my 6-step blueprint to break into the L&D fields. Friends, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!